Voila. Hello, folks. Music. How's everyone doing? Hope you're well. All right. Here we are on a Tuesday. Apologies for the mix-up. Oh, not the mix-up, the change of day. Yeah, had some nonsense go on last week, which kind of pushed everything for me. Hope everyone's good. I'm doing good. Let's draw. Okay, so we are going to be starting with 3 5-minute poses. Now these are going to be strict 5s. All right, no messing around. I need to warm up, truth be told. So I'm going to use gesture drawing as an excuse to do that. So yeah, we'll start with 3 5s. You know the drill. Let me know if the music's appropriately at the right volume and all of that. If I'm at the right volume, and we'll get cracking. Okay. So, for those of you who have access to the reference, which could be any one of you, by the way, if you remember, pretty standard first pose. Okay, let me get my pencil ready because we're only going to have 5 minutes. All right, guys, let's do this. There's our clock. All right, let's find, as I said, standard, straight on, standard pose, standing pose. So what we're going to do, shoulder line, the general axis of our shoulder, and let's find the rhythm of the upper torso coming to our hips. Coming down to the bottom of our pelvis. We have a supporting leg, our right leg obviously coming down, and you kind of just take a mental measure. It's almost coming down pretty much to the center of the form, right? What we want to be looking for, because obviously it's supporting her weight, so it would need to do that. I'm going to lift that just a tiny bit there. Now I'm just going to look at the axis for the axis of the hips. So coming down, iliac crest, axis is sitting about here. And if I drew an imaginary line between our 2 points of the axis, it's subtle, but there's definitely a tilt going in this direction. So now we've got a tilt, obviously, in this axis, and our shoulder axis this way. We've got our dynamics. All right, let's get a center line. Now, look, we've only got 5 minutes, right? So let's not mess around. I'm going to look for long rhythmical lines as much as possible. This leg coming out this way. And kind of resting, right? It's not really supporting any weight or anything like that. You can always come back and refine things as need be, time permitting. I think when we're doing these gesture poses, it is to some degree about prioritizing. And I think if we want to if we want to kind of make a checklist of things that we want to do in the 5 minutes, at the very least, we want to give some type of indication of where all the large forms of the body are situated in relative to each other, right? So we, doing a 5 minute pose and we don't even get to the point where we've, figured out where the arms are, then probably missed the point. So at the very least, in 5 minutes, even if you're kind of new to gesture drawing or drawing quickly, we can at the very least kind of get a stick figure together, right? Should be the minimum goal is a stick figure. And if that's all you get done in the 5 minutes, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. Now obviously she's got this thing that she's holding back here, so we'll suggest that. Okay, just going to get straight in and just try and maybe give a little bit more clarity to some of these ideas. There's nothing to say that, you can't take one of these 5 minute poses and take it further. you know, after the fact. So yeah, so once again, iliac crest coming to about here, coming down this way. And tensor fasciae latae, gluteus medius. Excuse me. Coming down to the knee. Right, 20 seconds. It is not much time at all. But hopefully it's enough time to at least get the general idea down, right? Now, I often hear people talking about, you know, 3-minute poses. There's our 5. Okay, we're just going to stop. Let's move on. Sorry, I'm suffering with a bit of a cold, I think. All right. Yeah, people talk about 3-minute poses, 2-minute poses, 1-minute poses. Look, there's a place for all of them. Well, I do think that when we get to 1 minute, we are bordering on, kind of bordering a little bit on the absurd, in my opinion, because we end up sacrificing good ideas or even the chance to really understand what it is that we're looking at for speed, and in a form that I don't really believe should be a race. I don't really see why we would go that short a time, why we put that level of restriction on ourselves. I've forgotten how fast 5 goes. Yeah, Doug, it's madness. Richard, did you get a haircut? I gave myself a haircut. Ishan, thank you for noticing. Yes. I don't do the barbers. Let's just put it that way. Haven't in many years. I have a problem with the barbers, so I shave my head when it needs cutting. And that's why it's never a glamorous cut. But yeah, 5 minutes goes super fast. And especially if you're starting out with gesture drawing, I personally would suggest that you do not go shorter than 5 minutes. I think there's a place for a 10-minute gesture drawing. I really do. I think we start to get into a weird kind of place of when does gesture become full form drawing. It's not really about whether something's gesture or a more developed drawing. I think it's the intention of the drawing, and also to some degree what it is that you want to say with the drawing, right? I like to think of gesture as, I like to call it the poetic form. It's trying to say the most with the least amount of words, right? And it's also why, in my opinion, I think gesture is probably the hardest stage of development and takes the longest to learn to do well. But it's a very important part of the drawing process and the drawing and our development, and should be part of our routine as we're developing. We should make time and make place for gesture, because it's really important. But I also think we need to understand what the purpose and the what it is that we need out of gesture. I would also say this, and when I'm saying stuff that a lot of you have already heard many times before, I think there's 2 different types of gesture, at least for me. This type of gesture I do when I'm doing, say, a 5-minute pose, and then there's the type of gesture I will do when I'm doing a 55-minute pose. Both of those drawings will start with gesture, but my approach will be slightly different. And the long form drawing will get a different type of kind of approach, and I'll take much longer with that gesture, even though it will still be the gesture stage. If that makes sense. I think I've talked about this many times. Anyway, next pose. Let's go. There's our clock. I also do not practice gesture nearly enough, and it is it's an art form that needs plenty of practice like marathon running or sprinting. You know, if all you do is marathons, then you're going to struggle with sprinting. Slightly harder pose than the last one. Although in some ways, the more dynamic the pose, the more it can lend itself to opportunities for strong gesture. Like, for example, someone just standing with their arms by their sides, standing straight towards the camera. That is arguably just about the worst type of pose you could have for a gesture drawing. You want something with long lines, preferably action-oriented, and something that's going to give you a lot of dynamics in the drawing, right? So, you know, you do want to keep that in mind if you're trying to do a gesture from, you know, someone sitting on a couch. It's going to be not an impossible task, but it's kind of losing the spirit of what gesture is really about, in my opinion. So when we're done with these fives, we'll go into a couple of longer form poses, and where we can relax a little, take our time, and then maybe we'll finish with something a little quicker. Let's see how we go. All right, let's keep cracking. Now I already know that I'm going to have to pull my legs. I'm going to have to tweak my legs a little bit here. Yeah, things are not really... Oh yeah, we can pull this forward actually. Let's do that. We'll soften that down. I'll pull that buttock forward to here. That now lines up with that. That's what was wrong. What I do love about gesture is it gives you, it forces you not to be precious about your decisions. I think there's a place to be precious about your decisions, don't get me wrong. But I think there's also a place to be forced to make a decision quickly and to stick with it. And that's it. So we have to think about where things have come from, where they're going to. We're trying to not abandon good drawing principles as much as possible. It's, once again, if all we end up with is a bunch of chicken scratch at the end, then, you know, we've kind of maybe taken on too much, or we need to think about it. But remember, get down your stick figure. If nothing else, get down a stick figure. So someone else could look at your drawing and go, okay, I have a sense of what that model was doing, I suppose. Then I think you've you've checked the first box of what it is that you want to achieve with your drawing. She's holding the sword going out that way. Missed. Oh, 5 down. All right, we went to 5:18. I didn't even see the clock. So I cheated. All right. Once again, not pretty drawing, but I would also say this. This is actually, I do think it's important. I'm drawing pretty big for a 5-minute pose. Because I'm trying to draw obviously large for camera too. But I think for gesture drawing, generally speaking, you can afford to draw smaller, okay? Because the larger you're drawing, the more geography on the page you're trying to cover, the more real estate, it's trickier, right? So generally speaking, don't feel like you can't, you know, scale down to at least half what I'm doing here. You know, if your whole figure is 8 inches tall, you know, that's perfectly respectable size, I think, for a 5-minute gesture drawing, right? Hey Rick, you made it. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. When I study male and female poses in gesture, I noticed that the female arms, when not stretched, will have an area past the bicep, kind of displaced. Is this due to bone placement of the joint's muscle? Constantaneous, without you specifically pointing out the area that you're talking to, there's too many things that could potentially be. Females are outstretched will have an area past the bicep, kind of displaced. Well, if we think about what is past the bicep, right, we've got in that whole area, we've got where we've got obviously the joint of the elbow, right, and we've got the 2 bones of the lower of the forearm, and we've got the upper arm, the bone of the upper arm. So we have that. We also have some overlapping muscles, right? One I famously talk about, brachioradialis, right, which is the large, in my opinion, at least from a rhythmical point of view, the most important transitioning form from the upper arm to the lower arm is this brachioradialis, because it attaches up here, and then it comes down and it attaches to the radial bone, right? And attaches to the brachial ridge of the humerus. So thus brachioradialis. Now that to me is a really important landmark because of its overlapping features. But you know, we've got 4 extensors, 4 flexors as far as forearm muscles. There's a lot of business going on there that it's hard to know what it is. It's constantly referring to hyperextension. Well, that is the other thing that we do talk about excuse me, quite a lot. The fact that women tend to, far more than men, in fact almost exclusively, women tend to be more double jointed, in my opinion, and they tend to hyperextend their elbows, which can lead to some things looking a little, we'll call it unusual, but you know, it's not unusual. It's just that in some cases it can look quite extreme. I don't see it much in male arm extension poses. No, maybe we're talking about maybe it bugs onto something with the hyperextension. Thank you, Dead Man Doogie, for the nice words. Appreciate it. Thank you, brother. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it, man. Let's continue. We've got one more 5-minute pose to do, and then we're going to move to, pencil is done. Let's pick our next victim. Okay, you'll do. Yes, it's natural, instantaneous. Hyperextension, and as I said, it's something that something connected to double jointedness that you see in women. I'll tell you, there's another very interesting thing I've noticed with females that you do not see in males. that I don't see ever discussed by anyone else in figure drawing or the likes is that, and it's, I would say it's in about, I'm going to say 20% of the female models that I look at, or people that I observe, regardless, and this is an important point, regardless of their weight, is when they do this, there is an extension that comes out this way and does this, a strong dip right in this area here. Whereas you can see on myself, although I'm, you know, lacking any real muscle, it's a fairly smooth transition. Some women, once again, I'm going to say 20%, the number's probably wrong, have this where it's flat and then quite a strong push out at that point into the forearm. And once again, it's not that's just on, let's say, heavier models or stuff like that. It's something I've noticed that some women have, some do not. Some do not exhibit it at all, and others, you see it. So there you go. Maggie says, I do, just did it. There you go. Okay. Yeah. It's an observation. I don't think it's as with hyperextension, you could say it doesn't mean anything. But it's an observation. Anyway, let's move on to our third pose. All right, 5 minutes, guys. Now we've got a sitting pose here, but there is, I would argue that there is dynamics to this pose, and we can actually even push that dynamics just a little bit more than we see in the model if we choose. Now she's sitting on this cube. Alright, this music's too slow for a 5-minute pose. Come on. This knee is about here. So it's coming down this way. This one's kind of back here and then kind of comes out this way a little. Might even does exaggerate that a tiny bit. Let's see, and then the stick coming, and the sword coming down that way. Okay, manubrium, clavicle. Tummy there, coming down, iliac crest. Rib cage, oblique. Okay. Oblique. Okay. Time to chat when we're doing these. Hurry up. 1 more minute. Okay. Okay, handle. And there's our 5. We did it. Okay, there's our 3 5s, guys. A good little warm-up. We should be listening to a completely different playlist for 5-minute poses. You are absolutely right, Tina. This is not appropriate music for what we're doing. But we made it. Take care, Rick. Have a good day, my friend. Good luck, man. I am getting the good vibes. I appreciate it. What is this song? Sounds post-apocalyptic. Well, the one playing at the moment is called Purple Moon by someone called Eden Avery. This is the one you're referring to. Daily Doodle. Thanks, PJ. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to slow things down a little bit, right? I needed the warm up there. So let's take a breath. It's amazing how fast 5 minutes goes. You know, it is funny, isn't it? They talk about how we can experience time differently depending on what it is that we're doing. If you ever need time to pass quickly, gesture drawing could be a very good way to approach it. I usually play ambient music or just listen to video game instrumentals when drawing. Yeah, Constantaneous. Film soundtracks are good too. I find stuff without vocals, for me personally, instrumental music in general, I can handle. Music with vocals tends to pull me out too much of what it is that I'm doing. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Movie music, exactly. All right, so we are going to, now we have 2 poses ahead of us where I want to kind of, they're slightly more complex. They're going to bring slightly different challenges. In both cases, we're looking slightly down at our subject, which is going to also bring its own you know, kind of challenges, let's say. Can you handle drawing in complete silence? You know, it's funny, Daily Doodle, I'll tell you. What can often happen is I will start drawing with music, the music will end, and then I'll be drawing for a while and realize I'm drawing in silence. I don't tend to necessarily ever start drawing in silence. I'm sure there's probably times I have actually, but generally speaking, I'd like to have something going. Something that helps with, because you know, maybe it's got something to do with meter, rhythm, pulse, or something that can help get that chain reaction happening, kind of thing. You know, get the inertia kind of moving forward. But I'll often then find myself, yeah, it's like, oh, I've been, you know, drawing in silence, kind of get lost in what you're doing, kind of thing. So that does happen. All right. I'm actually going to change pencil again. I can always come back to that guy. Oh, I don't think it's a bad habit to listen to the stream or YouTube video or podcasts. Look, honestly, I think to some degree, it's using a slightly different part of the brain. And I think that, you know, I was watching something about multitasking, and it's like they're talking about how efficient or inefficient the idea of multitasking is, and something to do with, like, you can multitask as long as the two things that you're multitasking are using different parts of the brain. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And it does kind of make sense. But if you're trying to do two tasks that are requiring the same kind of skill set, that's when the multitasking kind of suffers, or the things that you're working on suffer from the idea of multitasking. What is your recommended method of memorizing various parts of human anatomy? Should I study for a week or 2 weeks or a month or understand? Well, I'll tell you, I will make it very simple for you, Constantius. The way to study human anatomy is to understand that the study of human anatomy is a long process that requires just repeated viewing, let's say, repeated reference of ideas, going back to again and again over years, right? You can learn the large ideas about anatomy in a week, right? If you do, like, you know, where the large major muscle groups are and that type of thing. Depends to what degree you want to learn it or what degree you need to learn it. I think that a lot of people think they need to learn a lot more of anatomy than they actually need. But if you want to, like, learn names and you want to learn relationships between all the different muscles and all of that, go deep, understand that that's going to take a long, long time. But it doesn't have to be painful study. It should be a case of you're drawing something, you get stuck. What is that I'm looking at? I open the anatomy book or the anatomy app or my reference and I look at it and go, oh yeah, okay, that's tensor fasciolate. Okay, yeah. And then 5 minutes later, you've forgotten that name. And you have another pose a month later and you're like, what was the name of that muscle again? And you open up the app again and you look and you go, oh, tensor fasciolate. That's how you learn anatomy. That's how you learn anything in life, in my opinion. Right? Yes, you can cram for a week if you've got a test and you will maybe get through the test. Good, congratulations. You haven't really learned anything. Right? That's my answer. Richard, how are you doing? Could you get rest during your week off therapy? Well, I did get rest. Unfortunately, it was at the hands of the local hospital, Mila. I was in hospital for 4 days last week. Got out on Sunday, which is why the stream got pushed. But I'm fine. Okay, let's draw. And thank you for asking. Appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, look, I think, can you do a detailed anatomy lesson? Asks lovely Roy. Lovely name, Roy. I have some relatively detailed videos on my channel, Roy, that go into detail to some degree. Check those out. If you think there's something that you'd like me to go more specific on, then please let me know. Okay? Learn a new piece of anatomy each day. There you go. Today I learnt the infraclavicular fossa. You know, the space between the clavicle, pecs, and deltoid. This little, you get this little pocket of shadow that sits right in here, and you'll see it. You know, it's funny because you get a few little pockets of shadow around here, which is kind of worth knowing about and why they're there. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering correctly, which I may not be, but I do believe what you are referring to is this, what the pocket of shadow that we tend to get right here, where the pectoral muscle attaches to the clavicle, the deltoid attaches next to it, but there's this little gap. And that creates a tiny little pocket of tone shadow. That's where you go. Okay, let's draw. Wow, we're already... Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to reset the clock, because I've just been yakking this whole time. All right, let's draw. Okay, we're looking down on our model. Something we want to be mindful of when we're creating these initial relationships. Now, you know, once again, now we've gone, technically I'm kind of gone now to a long form drawing, but I still want to be thinking in terms of what is going on gesturally. Can someone tell me which is the next pose? We are working right now, Mila, on the one that she's sitting. She's in the seated pose. Pose number 4. So yeah, we've got some rhythm. We've got this leg coming this way. You can even see the volume, the roundness of that leg sitting there, coming down to here. Then we've got a very foreshortened leg coming down this way. She's sitting on this same cylinder that we saw earlier, sitting about here. Do we want to understand where that is? PJ, the model is actually on my website. It's a reference photo that we're working off that's on my website. It's available to anyone that's a member. Very simple to become a member. If you're on a PC or a Mac or whatever, there should be a join button. And once you join, in the community chat, you'll find a link, or on the community chat tab on my channel, you'll find a link to a website or a web page on my website where the reference is hosted. And it's like, what, $3 a month or something? I try to keep it as reasonable as I possibly can. And for that month, you'll have access to all of the reference that we use on any given month, and usually the previous month, frankly. And you can draw along. You have access to at least the last couple of months, 2-3 months of streams as well. And then if you're up a tier, which you have access to every stream and every reference page I've ever worked with. I think it works out for people. So we're looking down, so I want to find, like, you know, once again, trying to think about the perspective. She's actually, this little box that's sitting here is actually sitting on top of this round thing that's kind of sitting about here. I just want to very loosely kind of suggest it, because just to help with the perspective. You know, if we were actually looking, I've got a feeling that the eye line, the horizon line, is actually above her head. The horizon line is probably about here. I use Grafit Studio reference images for drawing. That's exactly what we're using right now, Constantaneous. And in actual fact, you'll find below, you'll find a link to actually a page on my website where I have links to all the reference pages, apart from I haven't put up to days actually yet, in fairness. But I post links to all of the reference pages that I use from Grafit, so that if people want to buy the full pack from Grafit at full resolution, they can. And that's a nice thing, because I think what they're doing is great. And, I in turn get a little something from Grafit for sending you guys their way. So it's a nice thing. Okay, so her elbow is sitting roughly around here. Forearm coming up this way. Once again, trying to keep things still pretty loose. I will be pushing and pulling. This is a complex pose. This wrist is here. Fingers are sitting about here. Actually, her head is down here, because her head is against her hands. Oh, we'll make that adjustment. You see, so this is the thing we've talked about many times, but this idea of, you know, let's say just say you have a regular standing, we'll call it a 3/4 front standing pose, with maybe a little bit of dynamics. Very easy to find long gestural lines, or to find the big ideas. As soon as we get into foreshortening, which this is a form of foreshortening because we're looking down at the pose, we switch. I tend to switch gears slightly. You know, I'm going to try and when I get to a point where I'm happy where everything roughly is, I'll look for those gestural lines, right? Whereas with the other poses, we're going straight into gesture because they're long, they're easy. It's much harder to find long gestural lines, in my opinion, when you've got complex poses. So this is where I kind of switch gears ever so slightly. Chilusik. I'm definitely Chilusik. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Sorry. Can you show me overhand grip and underhand? I mean, how you hold the pencil exactly. Well, I'm holding the pencil like this, right? This is the overhand grip that we're talking about here. Underhand, I guess you could, or we could call it like handwriting, would be like this, right? Now, if I draw like this, I'm drawing from the wrist, right? As we do with handwriting, right? We write from the wrist, and then we use the finger dexterity to write, right? When I draw like this, you'll notice that I'm drawing really from the shoulder and the elbow, right? And I have a video on this, Chill. I'll just call you Chill if you don't mind. I have a video on my channel. If you go to my channel page, there's, I think it's the second most popular video on my channel, one of them anyway. It's called Probably the Most Important Lesson I'll Ever Give. And I talk about the overhand grip in some, it's what the video is all about. And and how important I think that the overhand grip is in our approach to what it is that we're trying to do here. So I would say maybe check that out, and hopefully it'll answer your questions, Chill. All right. Did you all grab the new free pack from Grafit? They have a new free pack, awesome. You just asked to leave a comment rating. Well, that's, look, once again, how are these sessions scheduled? I can't find info. Well, the info's, if you go to the front page of my website, PJ, the info will slap you around the front of the face. It's all there. No, but in fairness, no, it's not easily accessible on YouTube. generally speaking, and there's been a bit of a weird transition recently because I've been going through just it's a bit of sickness thing, but we're meeting every Monday at 5 o'clock GMT, London time. But there's a caveat to that. I would say, at least at the moment, we're all sitting here on a Tuesday, and that's because people have been very, very patient and kind with understanding. I'm having to sometimes at the last minute change day at the moment, and that could be the case for a little bit moving forward. I'm hoping that will settle, and we'll have a regular schedule. I'm hoping that we can go back to 2 times a week. We were also doing a Thursday stream as well. So the idea is that eventually we'll go back to both. So yeah, that's for right now. It would be a Monday. Hold on, Isham, dude, please chill with the misinformation. I appreciate the spirit of what you're saying, but those are. I have done a Friday on occasion. I've even done weekends on occasion. But no, right now it's Monday. And if you're ever unsure about what day of the week, go to my website. It's a link. There's a link in the comments, richardsmytham.com. And there's always on the front page, it's always very clear what day of the week that week the stream is happening, or if I've had to change it, or that type of thing. Okay. Yeah, that's the long and the short of it anyway. All right, so this is all still very, very loose. And there's still a lot to resolve here. So this is a complicated pose. The sword coming down. Something like this. And I do really genuinely appreciate everyone's patience with the day changes and all of that. Yeah. Unfortunate byproduct of the silliness going on at the moment. Anyway, so we've got a very foreshortened lower leg here. It's going to need some attention, and we'll come back to that. But right now, I don't, and why am I drawing so lightly, and why is everything so kind of ghosty? Because I'm finding the large ideas. Like, for example, we talk about relative measurement, right? We're not grid measuring here. You know how I feel about that. I can already see, let's say, for example, I decide, okay, the overall measurements and relationships here are generally okay. And I can tell that the gap in here, the negative space in this area, is too short. So I know she needs to lift this leg and this knee up a little bit to probably about here. And when you do that, it usually then solves another problem where you go, oh yeah, now that leg makes contact, say, down here where it should, whereas before it was too low. And what I usually do is, especially if there's a section of the drawing where I'm really unsure of what's going on or how it is that I'm going to actually end up executing it, I'll tend to focus on the things that I get that there are clarity for, and I then shift and move around. And usually when you can find clarity in one area, it'll help inform another. And also the other thing is super important, in my opinion, is to never just get snowblind in one area and just focus on one area. Jump around the drawing constantly, like just tweaking until you're roughly satisfied with where everything is, and then you can say, okay, now I'm going to start a commitment pass, where I feel I can, make some statements. I know Richard doesn't love sketchbooks, but he inspired me to get one. I just learned how to sketch many times on his videos. You're very welcome, and I appreciate that. And yeah, you know, I'm glad you seem to know how I feel about sketchbooks. But look, that's not to fantastic. If you like sketchbooks, man, awesome. Thank you, Mila. Appreciate it. You see, I just can't see how anyone could do the overhand on a Cintiq. I mean, like, look, maybe there's a place for it, and maybe stylus has come a long way since I bought my Cintiq a few years back, however long it was now. But I just don't think the stylus on the Cintiq is the range of motion required. I could be wrong. I personally could not do overhand on the Cintiq. But look, if it's working for you, who am I to knock it? What is the best way to follow along? Should I put the reference photo on my iPad and listen on my phone? Struggling to figure. My opinion, Mrs. Warhol, fantastic name, is I would put the reference on the largest device that you own, and I would put the stream on the smallest device you own. Try and resist the temptation of just copying what I'm doing, right? You're clearly, obviously, you remember, and you have access to the reference and the stream, and you can always go back. And I think, though, the impression I get anyway is that there is a subset of people that literally copy my drawing, and I think that personally that's a terrible idea. That would be doing your own drawing, because, you know, I'm going to be making some ridiculous mistakes that you may not make on your own time. Okay, so that would be my opinion, is put the reference on have the reference as large as you can. Have me, it doesn't matter. You just have me, you didn't if you can hear me, I guess that would be useful. But, you know, now, Corel Painter. Yeah, you know, I used Corel at one point. I haven't used, like, I just don't do art on the computer these days. I do art with just, you know, this type of thing. Yeah, Corel Painter is a fine software, isn't it? Really, it's great. Photoshop, all of those. Procreate's very good if you've got an iPad. But I haven't used Clip Studio. I've heard it's good. Okay, now we've got a lot going on in this area with these two arms. Obviously her head, and then her torso, which is a slightly hidden form behind here, and we need to make a decision on how we're going to express all these ideas and hopefully bring some clarity. And it's going to be a tall order, because it's just a complex pose. I'm tempted to, I'm just even honestly wondering where I want to start with this particular series of ideas. I think I'm going to start with this arm because of the relationship to the head, and I'll work my way from there. Now, you know, you would normally say start with the largest forms, but so much of the large form in here is hidden behind these hands, and I think roughly we're in the right place. And on this side, I got a feeling that once I get clarity here, I may be adjusting what's happening over here by some order of magnitude. So this is my thinking. Look, this is, once again, so I like to use as a nice scapegoat. We're in the gym. This isn't about beautiful drawings. This is about working through ideas. Now, some lovely shapes though that we don't want to try and express. So let's see. It's also one of those things where you're working on something like this, especially like this right hand here, her right hand. It's really quite front and center. You know, usually the way I like to think about hands and that is they're almost, you know, when we got like a long line pose like this, the hand is kind of like an extension of another idea, right? Whereas here, this hand is really, it's really kind of exhibiting itself, so we need to kind of try and be mindful of that. I'm going to leave that there for now. Probably have to come back to that. What is this song? This song is Debussy. Suite Bergamasque. Here you go. Claire de Lune. Thank you, Constantinus. It's weird without Lulu. This from the chat. Yeah, I'm guessing Lulu showed up yesterday and went, you know what? Richard's a flake. I'm out of here. It's fair. It's a fair comment, Lulu. Lulu, you're missed. Hopefully Lulu will be back next time. Goes to show what chatterbox Lulu is, though. Let's be honest. All right, I'm going to leave that there. Once again, a lot of complexity here, and we're just trying to find our way. And this is also, as I said, where I'm going to be pushing and pulling ideas because my measurements are going to be off. I can already see, like, you know, let's look. You see, this hand is actually up here, right? Forearm coming down this way. So that's kind of very lightly just penciling that back in. That's why I was saying I knew that the measurement over here was going to need adjusting once I started to bring in some clarity. Now I'm looking even just like the distance between this hand. Right, if we look at mid arm, come to here, okay. Chin is about here, so that's okay. That line is actually in the right place. And I look actually this line. That's why these types of drawings really become just technical challenges, right? Now, with that line established, let's assume that we're happy with where that is for the most part. Now we can make some concrete decisions. Okay, deltoid is definitely sitting in here. We now have the real kind of, okay, we know how wide this arm is, right? Looking around us. Okay, everything coming in. We know that we're going to be moving up in this direction, so. And once again, this comes back to this idea of shifting our thought process and shifting gears depending on what the drawing or the pose kind of requires. Okay. I get the tube part, but what are the rings? What? Excuse me. Oh, Constantine said, I learned to break down the fingers to imagine them as thin tubes and rings, and the rings in between the tubes. Well, you're thinking about them. I think what Constantinus is saying, Tina, is if you think about the idea of a cylinder, right? We'll just draw up here, right? So imagine a cylinder, and let's say it's a tapered cylinder like this leg coming towards us, so it's going to be thinner at the knee, right? Just for the sake of the you know, for the sake of the demonstration. So we've got a tapered cylinder coming towards us. Looking at this now. Okay, the rings would be the idea of, imagine. And I could be misspoken to what Constantinus is saying, but the idea I always like to use is, imagine you've got a pair of striped leggings on, and the stripes going around the form. You know this, team. We do this all the time. So we draw a ring around the form, right? Imagine we got a ring, and if this was a glass leg, we would see the entire ring, but we see the part that's visible, which is going around the form. Think of it like that, and that's a way that we can conceptualize a form. So now imagine we have like the sartorius muscle coming down, right, coming up from the aces, coming down this way. Well, now that's actually going to disrupt these rings. It's going to change the form of the ring to something more like this, right? So now we've given our ring a little bit more dynamics. Let's say be slightly less down here, but you could almost subdivide with tone right where that line of the sartorius is. But we've deformed the ring in that way to follow the geography of the form as it turns. So that's kind of the tubes and rings thing. Now, certainly not to take away from Constantinus's point, you can think of the fingers in this way. I would be very much tempted to suggest, or not just tempted, I would suggest that you actually think of fingers as cylinders, as squares, right? Rectangles. I would be thinking conceptually, at least initially, of fingers like this. Maybe the knuckle joint is there. Maybe there's another one coming down here this way, something like this. Maybe there's even a third one coming down here with the fingernail, right? I like to think of squares first with fingers and not cylinders. The reason being is you'll end up with a hybrid somewhere in between. The problem is if you start with cylinders, you're much better chance of ending up with banana fingers. Right? If you actually look at your hands, you look at your fingers. Hold on, let's cut to a close-up, kids. Just for a second. Not that you can't look at your own fingers, but there's a lot of flat planes, right? I would make an argument that there's a lot more flat planes than there are cylindrical kind of concepts, right? I don't need to be giving you guys the finger. But I like to think of these as flat planes first. Like, look at that. That is the side of the finger is an extremely flat plane, right? It's box-like. Like, I could draw a line along here. Can I do it? I can draw a line right there. Look how square that is a pretty, like, I'm not exaggerating that. Look how flat those planes are. Right? That is, in my opinion, when drawing hands, that is and especially if the hand is the focus of the subject, it's the way I would do it. The other key and the other trick to drawing hands we've talked about many times is grouping fingers. So here, for example, and once again, let me go close up this for a second. These two middle fingers, I've just grouped together. So we've got index finger, middle ring finger, and then pinky. Generally speaking, if you've got a hand, avoid this at all costs, unless you are the best person in the world at drawing hands, or you really know what you're doing, or this subject really asks for it. Much better to group like this, or like this. That's obviously getting into Star Trek territory. Generally, I find if you lock at least, or even like this is a good one, right? 3 fingers together, 1 out. But generally speaking, try and group wherever possible, because you want to stay away from banana fingers at all costs, and that's one of the ways that you'll do that. Okay, that's my feeling on the subject. All right, it's coming up this way, so now we've got a little bit more clarity. Drawing banana fingers today. Well, you are in very good company. Yes, agreed. The fingers are planes. Yeah, much easier. We learned that. Like, okay. Yeah, we should do a hand session again, right? We haven't done one in a while. They're always a good thing to practice. But, it's funny, isn't it? I made all these different adjustments here. It turns out that this measurement was actually good. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to start to bring some clarity into now this side of the form. Yeah, we'll do a hand session. I'd like that. We did feet not too long ago. That was fun. Clavicle. Oh, sorry, scapula. Back here. And then coming up. Trapezius. Okay, so now we're... Once again, we're piecing this thing together. Let's come down here. And we'll find... Obviously, the oblique is here, the iliac crest coming around this way, coming around the form, going around, meeting up on this side, around a little bit more severe from our perspective. The iliac crest is up here, right? We're actually right here. But look how off my measurement was there. That is kind of crazy. I'm going to have to lift this once again. This is going to need lifting way up, which is not great, really, but it is what it is. So we're going to lift it. This is why you don't copy me, kids. That's why these types of drawings, they're just really just brutally hard technical exercises that do kind of border on, while they're really good discipline and they're really good practice, they do border on you know, kind of, I would make an argument almost kind of missing the spirit of what it is that we're trying to do here, but they are very good practice. Magic. I also think that I've made a meal of this drawing way more than I probably should have or would under other circumstances. Anyway, it'll hopefully all kind of come together in the end, and we'll end up finding something resembling the truth. But not necessarily the most fun thing to watch on a live stream, if I'm honest. But there you go. Oh, Tina, thank you. Great haircut. I did it myself. Thank you. You couldn't tell. I just got out the sheep shears and went for it. I'll tell you why. Because I'm weird. And, well, firstly, in my 52 years living on this earth, I've had maybe 3 haircuts done by someone else that I haven't walked away from the barbers not absolutely hating, and in many cases going home and changing myself anyway. And just, I dislike going to the barbers to the point where I would rather suffer through what looks like a military haircut every 3 months. You know, a couple of weeks it'll grow out, it'll be fine. Yeah, I dislike that interaction to that degree. And I know it's irrational. But there's a few interactions that make me more uncomfortable than the barbers. And you know, I don't have a relationship with my barber. The chatting about stuff that means nothing, and the awkward conversation, and then, you know, in the UK here, it seems like you can't get a haircut unless it's at what we call these Turkish barbers, and they insist on massaging your neck and all of this nonsense, and it's like, please stop. It's just a horrible experience for me. So anyway, why am I sharing? You're asking. It's a very good question. Sorry. I'd like to say you asked, but you didn't. No, that's what happens. So there you go. Yeah, that leg will work about there. We'll, hopefully we'll make that a little prettier, but it's a general idea. Oh, I have tissues. Richard's China mark with the sketching tool. What is consistency like? It's very waxy. Is it similar to a Prismacolor wax colored pencil, or even a 10B lead? Well, I'd say it's closer to a Prismacolor. I think if, especially for something like gesture drawing, China marker can be very nice. But I do think that with China marker, it's all about the surface that you're drawing on, as much as anything else, and it tends to want a very kind of non-porous kind of, I won't even call it paper. You know, China marker is, you know, like they're brilliant at drawing on glass and stuff like that, right? Or, you know, acetate film and stuff with surfaces like that. I would say it would be something you need to just practice with and try on different materials and see if it's something that you like. Would not be necessarily my go-to pencil in a figure drawing session, but that's not to say that you couldn't. Why not? Couldn't agree more about the chit chat there. Thanks, PJ. Yeah, telling you, it's the worst. Because, you know, it'd be one thing if you went to the barbers a couple of times a week, or, you know, you went for a shave and a haircut, and you know, you actually you built some kind of something resembling a relationship. But who does that? And if you do that, fair dues to you, but you live in a very different kind of society than I do, or world than I live in. I'm not thrilled with what's going on here at all. I'll come back to it. I'm with you as first people touching, Mrs. Patrick. Yeah. Once left a yoga class because I thought my toe was aimed in the wrong direction. Just try to move it. Seriously. Yeah, okay, I'm not alone. It's good to know. I'm not the only completely dysfunctional human being. That's hilarious. What is this song? I recognize it. Shapes of Shadows. Was that one that just stopped? Were we talking perspective? Hey Rick, are you an introvert or an extrovert, Richard? I am a introvert to the highest degree. And people will go, oh, you never know it from the stream. I have in the past spent a good portion of my life getting out of social situations or social interactions. I am wildly uncomfortable at parties, at social gatherings, even gatherings, frankly, with relatively close family. I am just very, very uncomfortable when I'm basically out of the house. I try and fake it as much as possible. Now, the funny thing is, I don't mind doing the stream, probably because I'm just in the room alone, essentially talking to little, 1-inch square lens of glass. And we converse like this. And that's not to say, I teach, I teach classes. I can stand in front of, the funny thing is though, in saying that, I can also get up and stand up in front of a room of 30 people and talk for an hour about drawing or about a subject and be absolutely fine. I don't really even get nervous about talking in front of live groups of people. It's much more about having to have, I don't even mind talking to people one-on-one. It's a weird thing. But I would consider myself an introvert. And there are many, many social situations which I try and get out of because I don't want to be in those types of situations. So yeah, there you go. Okay, Rick. I think Lulu's probably doing better things. Good for Lulu. maybe he was fired. Well, that would be a foolish thing for me to do, would be to fire someone who has given so much of their time. As someone like Lulu. No, Lulu was not fired. Like that much I can say with some certainty. And fired from what exactly? That would be the follow-up question. No, Lulu just couldn't make it today. For whatever reason. And we are, after all, on an odd day here. So it's somewhat understandable. That's very understandable. Yeah, this is really just... I am actually getting to a point with this drawing. We're at 45 minutes with it, and I am getting to a point where I'm actually just not happy with it. Not enjoying. I'm getting to a point where I don't think I'm even enjoying myself with this drawing. I'm going to give it a few more minutes just to kind of tie up some details, but this drawing is never going to be anything. And I'm just kind of I'm a bit bored with it, and I really don't see the necessity to suffer through a drawing that will say would be nice for lighting the fire, but a bit warm for fires recently. I don't even think I want to bother doing a tonal pass on it, to be honest. No, it was good exercise. Little handle thing here, sword coming down. Some wrap. This very exotic blade. It's it was actually the next pose, which is the one that actually kind of looking forward to doing. You know how I like a back related pose. This thing's being flogged to death. Perspective on the hips is perfect. Well, thank you. And I appreciate, you know, I appreciate the sentiment. Look, this is a technical exercise, right? Like, the pity it couldn't have been a better drawing, but I think I'm done. It's how about your music? Do you enjoy interacting with other musicians? Share your like or genre. Oh, you know, look, I do, and I like playing with other musicians. I don't want you to take the spirit of what I'm saying wrong. I'm not a complete social outcast, I hope, although my friends might have something to say about that. I just avoid social gatherings as much as possible. Let's just put it that way. But it's fair. It's a fair comment, get me. Awesome, man. All right. Garbage. Oh well, it was good practice. It was a good practice. Let's move on. Now this is going to be hopefully funner. like to be in my room drawing and listening to music, because I like how Richard thinks, you know, yeah, sounds about right, Constantius. I think we're on the same page, my friend. On Tuesdays, Lily Spencer. Okay, thinking up new names for him itself. Who knows what diabolical plans that Lulu has Tuesday penciled in for. Who knows? Be line dancing for all we know. You never know, right? I know it feels weird, but you never know. Who are we to judge? Let's go with line dancing. That's what he's doing. Alright. Next pose. Now, we do have one of the same things going on with this pose as we did with the last one, in as much as we are looking down at our model, and this line for the, and we're looking at her back here, just for those who don't have the reference. This line here of her buttocks, where the form turns, kind of gives us that sense of the overall perspective, right? You almost create a vanishing point from here, kind of going off in this direction. Could be one way to kind of even conceptualize it. Find the center line for the spine, for the back. Something roughly about here. And we can see like where our transitioned, if we just look at this as an idea, right, and this is a negative shape, but we look right here, we can see very faintly the oblique, which is going in. We know that the iliac crest is sitting out here, right? And we can actually very, 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 very subtly see sacral dimples coming across this way. And once again, that line between them, we can see them here and here. And that line is going to be working on the same axis as this line, right? So we can keep things kind of straight or horizontal to each other. And you could even imagine, if we could think of this as boxes, there would be an edge to this box right here, right? Somewhere about there. Same with this here. So now we're starting to seat our model, our form. Now, this is an interesting thing. We're looking down, as you know, because we're looking down, all of our cylinders are working in that direction. If we were to draw our rings, let's say, what we were talking about before. I've drawn the iliac crest moving in this direction, but when I actually draw the oblique, notice it's actually, we draw it in the most subtle terms possible, it's coming in this direction. We want to keep that. Don't want that. Even though I drew it that way because I know that that's probably what's going on with the skeleton. We actually want this because it's going to help sell the perspective, right? And we keep things moving. And once again, with this box philosophy, almost see the edge of the form. If we're thinking in boxes, the edge of the oblique is about here, and then as we move up the form this way, now we've got our rib cage. It's kind of just revealing itself here. My guess is it's sitting about here. sitting in this region. I'm just very lightly going to give a sense of where I think it is. Sitting about there. Okay. It's a very subtle crease in the leg, sitting right here. Now, this, if I draw rings, once again, the idea of rings around this leg is sitting here. Striped leggings. But I want to look at the idea. If I come about here and I come up, and I come to about here, oh, look how much lower that is. Let's make that adjustment. And that is actually this line here. We need to be careful. It doesn't necessarily represent the rib cage, but it does represent the clavicle, which is sitting in here. In this section here, right? It's sitting something like that. So, something for us to be mindful of. And then we can look on the other side. We go around our form. Kind of get a sense it's tricky because she almost looks like she's really pushing her other clavicle. Other clavicle's sitting on the form somewhere about here, going off in this direction. And we can actually see that little bump there, the acromion process. Sitting right there. See that clavicle, or that shoulder blade sitting there, scapula, clavicle. I enjoy brief encounters with interesting people and then moving on. That's actually very, very, very nicely put. I can agree with that sentiment. Circle, triangle. Our lumbar, and then we look at the way we go into that really lovely kind of what will hopefully be a nice rhythmical push, moving us up and then into the deltoid there, the trapezius coming off the ridge of the scapula this way, and then starting its journey up this way up to the occipital ridge, which we can't see because it's behind her hairline, but it's sitting about there. See her skull sitting in there, which we also can't see. We want to understand where it sits though, because we do want to place the hair on it in what will hopefully be a meaningful way. So something like that. Now, just coming down. Okay, so the heel of that foot is about here. This foot coming in, this part of the foot coming in here. Big toe sitting there, toes, pads of the feet. Kind of a graphic representation of the pads of the feet, but it helps kind of just cement an idea. Ankle, calf. Now, if I look at this here, and I want to find there's a transition where the gluteus medius kind of reveals itself on this side. Relative measurement. If I go from here and come up, it's about here, right? Which also makes sense considering our perspective. All right. And refine that. Now the other leg. And once again, always good to remind ourselves that forms have come from somewhere, even if we can't see it, and they're going to somewhere. So we can see the leg reveal itself about here, this left leg. We do want to be mindful, okay, it's really kind of its journey has started here, and so to some degree or another. So whenever we have a form that's kind of just revealed itself or it's been hidden, ask yourself, where did it come from? And that hand is sitting on there too. That'll do for now. Placeholders. Okay, and the other foot, which we can see just reveal itself about here. Okay, now her right arm, if we could see, we don't really know where it is. We're going to guess it's probably, maybe she's holding it up to her, somewhere in front of her, her upper torso. Or it could be pointing in front of her for her face. Frankly, we don't know. It doesn't really matter. So it kind of goes off in this direction. And we've got the big thing now, the hair, right? Which is obviously covering a whole lot of what we've just drawn here. So let's just find the perimeter of that. It's kind of flowing in this direction. And kind of coming down like this. And now from here. Sitting in there. And then coming down this direction down to here, meeting back up there. So there's a large idea, right? And that's the trick with hair, is start with large ideas, then subdivide. So you see a large subdivision about here. And then this way. Something like that. And to divide hair into like quadrants of thirds is usually pretty useful. Something like that. Try and, generally, well, I don't know, I just added that line, but if just putting that aside, you've got like large, medium, and then small in the middle. You could mix up that combination, but at least the large ideas, even before the subdivision, is like, small, medium, large. Then break it down again, and you can then continue to break down. But at least that way it keeps you can keep an organic sense to it. Okay, so we've got some business done. We're getting there. Thank you, Whitney. Well, don't do whatever you do. Please don't rewind the video to the last one. Okay. Alrighty. Now, I think it's time to tie down. We've got some, so I like to talk about some extremely long passages all the way through here, right? Coming all the way up here. If we go from here, say, we'll consider that the intersection. We've got one kind of break here coming up. Think about direction change, right? To keep things visually interesting. It's the way. So I'm actually going to start here. And I'm just going to be looking for those opportunities to change direction. Something like that. May have gone a bit overboard with this one. This curve. You know, I'm going to leave it for now. Seems to be something that people really struggle with, is knowing when to bring direction change into their work. And it's such a strong tool for us to use to just keep things visually interesting. Look for direction change. There's way more direction change than most people realize. And it's where so much dynamics and tension and gestural kind of ideas can be put into play through the use of good direction change. See this direction change here, quite straight there, and then a direction change, and then we come into that passage where we meet up with the rib cage. Another direction change. And now we've got the scapular direction change, which is twofold. Coming up and then meeting up with the shoulder up there. And then we've got not only direction change, but anatomy change, because we're going into the tricep, which is just revealing itself very subtly there and then goes behind the hair. So we'll leave that there for now. Okay, excuse me. Hold. Okay, now let's do the same thing down here. All right. Cool. Look how square those toes are. So we want to really get away from cylinders. Fingers and toes. There's no place for cylinders. Okay. Right, let's see with this hair. What are we gonna do? What are we doing here? We have these. Do me a favour, someone write something in chat, even just we're still here. Just want to make sure I'm still on stream. You see, normally this is where Lulu would kick in and be inevitably talking in Japanese at this point. Long streams of Japanese text revealing itself on the thing. I just need to know that I'm still live. And frankly, chat is the only way right now. Thank you, Rick. There you go. Okay, so we got our large groupings. We'll subdivide. We'll just add a now. So we got those. So for example, now I'll just start like. Let's see. Something like that. Hair design is tricky, right? Like let's not kid ourselves. Probably we want to just kind of give some sense of dynamics. A little bit. And the degree to which you subdivide your hair, just remember that once you subdivide, you've got to commit to that throughout. So I would say subdivide with caution and be sure that you're ready to take on the next level of subdivision. If that makes sense. And see, I think for the purposes of a drawing like this, that's probably enough, especially when I fill that in with some tone. In fact, I look at this now and I just go, okay, that could probably be subdivided, this block here. So which side do I want to subdivide on? I'm just going to go from here. Okay, I think that'll do it. Actually, I don't like that now as a shape. Damn. I'm going to fix it. It'll be okay. Once I've filled it in, it'll be fine. But it's not great. Tina, look at that. You're very welcome. That's fantastic. Good. Boxes are really great ways for us to understand where forms are turning. Brilliant. Here it's all about shape and movement. It's true. It's all about shape division. Ah, Laura, yes, you missed the barber rant. Barber rant. Okay, I'm going to now think about how I'm going to light this very subtly lit on our reference. But I think we can work with what's on the reference actually, but I think we can just punch it a few percent. I'm actually going to change pencil now because I'm going to core shadows and I don't want any hard flat edges on my pencil. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. Well, once again, what's always easiest, generally speaking, is to start with what we call the low-hanging fruit. So our light direction is coming from here. So let's find where our form is turning and we're creating a halftone. And where we can start to subdivide some of these larger shapes, and we can push some things into tone and let some things stay the way they are. Let's block a tone in here. It's just so incredibly subtle moving across the form here. But I need to make a choice, right? And we're coming back to boxes, right? So there is some insane half-tone variations going on in this area. So what I am going to do is, in the interest of clarity, is I'm going to be thinking about the larger ideas of where this tone divides, right? Coming back to our boxes. All the way back to the beginning conversation. Remember when I drew this what's now an incredibly faint line right here, and I was saying that if we imagined a box turning in space, right, we go from this direction to here, this is our edge. Well, that's also going to be the edge of where we go from lit into tone. And because it's so subtle and frankly ambiguous on the model, I'm going to use that as my process for finding where the form is turning in space, and consequently where I'm going to end up putting my what's in shadow and what's in light. So it could be one of those situations where it's a good example of just how we can use all those different tools from conceptual light up to help bring clarity, hopefully to bring clarity to what it is that we're doing. Now we have a lovely cast shadow here. Now we've got a little pocket of light here. We'll use that. Thank you. Ah, Mila, thank you so much. I do very much appreciate it. All the support from everyone. You don't know, your Richard voice bar for all the same reasons. I love a haircut. Neck massages, chit chat, and that nonsense. Like a better half, get a fresh haircut. Tina. Isn't it wonderful that there's something for everyone? Good for you. Look, you know what? Wouldn't life be easier if I had your philosophy? Because I'm doing myself no favors with this particular way of thinking. Let's be real. Okay, while very subtle at this point, I think when I start to fill in with a bit of tone here, we will hopefully bring a bit more clarity to these ideas. So I'm going to do just that. We're already, oh gosh, we're at 7 o'clock already. Okay. So let's also notice the way I'm filling in very lightly here with the hair, but notice I'm still filling in sections. I'm not just like going right across all the forms. I actually think that's kind of important. Things can look very I don't know, clumsy is the right word. I just think it's a better strategy to, even when you're blocking something in, to still sometimes to subdivide. I'm just going to go over this one more time. I'd like it a little bit darker. All right, we can go in here. Also quite a bit of subtle material on the page that when I go in with the kneaded eraser, and we'll pull some of that out. And help bring another level. Oh, well, look who finally shows up. There's been great discussion, Lulu, about where you were, what you were doing. And when I say we, I mean Rick, came to the consensus that most likely you were most certainly up to no good. But we decided that you were probably off having dancing, something along those lines, line dancing. So there you go. Well, welcome. You are a little late to the party, but that's okay, because we are just about done here. Anyway, now before I do though, you know what? I hope I'm not going to regret this, but I'm going to punch up some core shadows with a slightly more aggressive pencil. Let's just test this before you never draw without testing fingers. Okay. Right, let's do a little bit of blending, a little bit of erasing, and day. Don't want to blend too hard. I don't want to lose some of this nice texture that's already in the hair. Certainly don't want to lose any of the subdivisions, so we'll keep it light. It does give us an opportunity to just soften up a little bit and punch a little bit here and there. Okay, just gonna... Lovely Richard Stump. Not quite Whitney. Close. Not quite. Now, eraser time. This is always the part I'm never sure really how much it shows up on camera, but I'm going to do it nonetheless. Pocket of light in here. Yeah. Bit much. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not really adding anything to the drawing at this point. So all right. I think we're going to call it done. Open up that pocket of light. Thank you, thank you. Thanks, PJ. Appreciate it. Guys, I think we'll call it a day. There is... Well done. Shall we finish with one more 5-minute pose? The pose is here. Right, let's do it. Come on, finish with a 5. We started with 5s. Let's go back. Let's finish on a bang. Yeah, like I'm happy enough. Don't know. All right, one more drawing. One more. I've been working on having thick lines in the shadow side and thin lines in the lit side. After looking at yours, why am I bothering? There might be a place for that, Rick. I without saying, how to say. Why are you bothering? Because you're trying things. All right, 5 minutes, guys. 5 more minutes. Let's do it. Standing pose. Kind of interesting. It's got dynamics and yet it's quite straight on. It's going to be a slight shoulders tilt in that direction. There's a supporting leg coming down here. Loved it. What almost looks bow-leggedness to this leg coming out this way. It's not bow-legged, but you know what I mean. It's got that kind of rhythm to it. She's got her sword in the back there. And this arm is kind of coming down here. Lovely dramatic hair. And sit here. It's great. Okay. Crest, ribcage, pectoral, press in there. Ah, what are the chances we'd be finishing on this song, huh? That's hilarious. Video. Three minutes, all right. That seems fair. Break your ready, Alice. And sitting here. Nails. Yeah. All right, 5. Thank you, Mila. Appreciate it. We did it. We made it, guys. On this Tuesday. Fantastic, guys. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Once again, much appreciation for your putting up with the elasticity of the time, or no, the day that these things have been happening. If you're watching and you're never sure, you will always get up-to-date news, especially on my website. It's really the go-to place. I feel a bit weird about giving too many updates on the chat in YouTube, because it notifies every single subscriber, which is a decent amount of, and it's a weird balancing act between informing you guys and also not bugging you guys. So I try to find a balance, but it's always available on my website. Any changes. So if you're ever unsure, or if you come to the stream and I'm not at the right place at the right time, go to my website, and usually it'll tell you all what's going on. I hope that you've enjoyed the session. I've enjoyed the session. I've actually enjoyed doing those little hives at the front end. We'll do that again. Always check the website, especially you, Lulu. Yeah, the website. It's the place. It's absolutely the place to get up-to-date info. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. It's been a great session. I've enjoyed it. Not every drawing came out quite as we would have liked, but this is life, right? So be it. Water off a duck's back, so to speak. I will be, as of right now, today at 7:19 in the evening on Tuesday, my intention is to be back next Monday at 5 p.m. London time, which I think will still be on GMT, which I know we're on a weird kind of difference with you folks in the States right now. It's 1 hour less than normal. That is the intention. Should that change, I will notify you. I will send a message on YouTube to the members. But, you know, if you're unsure, check the website. Okay, guys, have a fantastic week. Whatever you may do, wherever you may be, look after yourselves. Stay safe. And I'll see you next week. Cheers, guys. Bye now.